Hey guys, so today is the 30th of November, also known as the last day of NaNoWriMo, and it has been amazing, and it has been so much, it's been so, it was, so, it, I don't even know how to formulate how I feel into words. It's so, when I started it, I didn't know what to expect, because I hadn't done it before, and I've done writing things before, but I haven't done anything that was to this scale, that had like a deadline, but I was like, well, this seems exciting and fun, and I should do it, and so I am so glad I did. It was so fun and so great to eventually hit the 50,000 word mark, and I hit it a week early, and I was so, like, I did it super early, I did it, like, really, and I was so happy, and there was, like, this huge community element that, I knew that, like, once I had agreed to do it, that I knew there was something like that, but it's been so much more than I expected, and so much more than I could have hoped, and I am very just, I'm totally coming back next year to do this again. It was just so fun. As a reward to the end of NaNo, and of winning NaNo, and I was going to make this as a winning NaNo video, but I decided to just hold off and do it as a end of NaNo / celebration for winning thing. And it is, I am going to read the prologue of my NaNo project to you. And a couple things to keep in mind. One, point one that I would like to make is that I don't know, this is the first draft, and so I don't know how much of this would convey over to being in the publicated version, but it's really rough at this point because I did rush it in 50,000 words, so it's not polished, it's not stellar, and by much, but I'm pretty proud of it, and I kind of like it, and so it at least conveys everything that I want the prologue to convey, and so when I go into working on it again, I can just, I can see what I have and go from there. Point two that I would like to make, I apologize for the really annoying noise that you may or may not hear. I'm doing laundry in the other room, and the washer's on a spin cycle, I think, and so it's just really loud and annoying. So point three that I would like to make is, the prologue, since it does cover a lot of different elements that will later be held, there I will have to issue a trigger warning, that it's not explicit, but it is very much implied and mentioned. So if you do not want to hear about something that is that handles with self-harm and depression in that way, I will put another warning up right before I read that, and I will give you a link or a time in which you can just jump to, and it will skip that for you. There's that. So I thought about cutting it out, but I felt like for the people that wouldn't affect, it wouldn't make any sense, and so I decided to just I'll just put a little time jump that you can just jump to. So let's move to the prologue. It has been slightly edited to make just a little more sense, but for the most part, it is still in its very unedited, messy form. Maybe that was what point four. I do not read out loud very easily, very often. So if I end up stumbling over my words, it could be the document itself, but it also could just be me reading. So I got my water here. that tastes like soap for some reason. And let's get going. A girl sat on the edge of her lavender bed, taking in the feeling associated with what was going to happen to her that day. A silence filled the room with such a thick tension, yet the voice in her head screamed. It screamed for justice, for time to go back, for life to reset to the time before. There was a feeling of hollow sadness that felt like it was consuming her from the inside as she sat in silence. Well, as silent as it could get. She looked down in her short black dress, the hem of which fell just above her knee, and ran her fingers across the pleated skirt. She never really liked black, but now she despised it. It reminded her of the feeling inside her soul. She didn't want to wear it, however, she had to. It would have been wrong, disrespectful, if she hadn't. She gave a deep sigh, and walked over to the mirror that lay in the corner of the room. Her long blonde hair was twisted into a harsh bun in the back of her head, and her normal bright blue eyes were now dulled with the emotion and lined with dark makeup. So much darkness. She didn't even want to wear the makeup. She knew it would only run down her cheeks when the ceremony started, but her mother had forced her to. She closed her eyes, forcing herself not to cry and trying to silence the voices, but they only screamed louder. It wasn't fair. He shouldn't have left. Now she was going to be alone with the voices that plagued her. She tried to tell her mind what she already knew, that it wasn't his fault he was gone. He would never have left if it was his choice, but he didn't have that luxury. She turned away from her reflection when she heard the voice of her mother, cold, cynical, calling to her, telling her it was time to go. Go to the funeral home where she would stand for hours in the company of strangers, hearing the apologies from people that meant well but only hurt more. Hearing things like, "It will work out," but how could they? She didn't want her life to just work out without him, without Dad. The girl forced herself out of her bedroom, down the wooden steps, and out the front door, shutting the door with a click of a lock. Her mother, a small woman with an oval-like face and a lingering look of disapproval, was waiting in a small gray car, an all too familiar look of unhappiness. The girl knew that she had a reason to have that face that day. It probably looked similar to her own, because they shared a lot of features. Hair color, face shape, even the color of their eyes. Except her mom's eyes never shone when she smiled, if she ever smiled at all. The girl concluded that she must have on very rare occasions. Her father used to smile a lot, and his eyes shone like stars when he talked about how proud he was of her. But she would never hear his voice or see those eyes again. She took a breath. No, she would not cry. After scurrying down the stone paths, her flats making a light clicking sound with each step, she entered the passenger seat and closed the door with a thud. She glanced at her mother, but she only ignored her as she put the car into gear. The girl shook her head and latched her seatbelt. No, she didn't really expect anything from her mother today. No sympathies, no apologies, nothing at all. That would be an improvement, she decided. She pulled her phone out of her small black clutch she had and looked in it for any messages. Part of her wanted there to be a message from someone in her secondary school class, someone trying to encourage her. But aside from the old messages from her parents, there was nothing. That wasn't a surprise, however. She didn't really have many friends, just a handful of kids that didn't tease her. She opened the last message she had received. Of course, it had to have been from her father. "Hey Kay, I know you're in class right now, but I wanted to tell you that I love you and that I'm proud of the young lady you are becoming. They're taking me into surgery soon, but they're saying there won't be any problems, so I'll see you when you're out. Love, Daddy." But he never made it out of that surgery. Somewhere, the girl figured that he knew he wouldn't. That's why he said those things. Sent them to her so she would always have them. A warm tear trickled down her face and off her cheek before she had a chance to wipe it away. Her mother looked at her for a second, but when her daughter looked at her, she gave what seemed to be, and was meant to be, an eye roll before looking at the road. Kay, or more accurately named Catherine, shook her head again and looked out the window at the pastel houses that lined the street, their appearances abrasive with all their colorful siding and pale roofs contrasting with her black dress and dark makeup. She hated black. The car ride was steeped with a melancholy tension between mother and daughter. They never really got along well before, but now when their one connecting factor was gone, they just sat in silence, causing Catherine to wonder what she had done wrong. Why did her mother dislike her so much? She understood that today her mother was hurting, that they were on their way to say their final goodbyes to her husband. But it was her father too, and more than anything she wanted her mother to say something, anything to comfort her. But there was only silence, coupled by the sound of the rumbling on the road and the occasional driver by. She started to hate silence as much as the color black. Both were steeped with sadness. After 13.5 minutes, the gray car pulled into a funeral home driveway. Catherine had been to a funeral home before, but they were for people she didn't know well enough to feel sad about. But she felt the sadness now. The car parked next to the curb, and the engine was turned off, only magnifying the silence. The girl got out of her seat, eager to find some noise and to be rid of the suffocating silence, the lack of comfort, the lack of anything, something that this was, lack of, that's not proper English, that this was real life and not just a nightmare. But it was real. The feeling of warm air, the second she walked in, had hit her like the reality that she was in the real world, her new reality. She walked into the medium room across the door and saw several people, all in black, preparing the area for the memorial. The room was rather large, with giant curtains surrounding the windows in a dark color palette. She hated the darkness. It caused her to feel like she was in a nightmare, a dream she couldn't escape. And she couldn't escape it, because it was real life. She walked up front and let her feet settle into the spot of crimson carpet where she would be standing for the following several hours. Then she looked at her phone. 0 messages. Perhaps that was for the best. She only had one good friend, and he was why she was there at all. Suddenly, the door of the room opened and closed again with a slam, causing the girl to jump. Her mother was quickly approaching, and sharply turning to the spot next to her. Either it was the quick motion or the fact that she was forced to stand so close, but Catherine felt a chilling breeze enter the room. She gave a sigh. She really was alone. The door opened again, and the same 3 men in black rolled a long black box down the aisle. It was a casket as black as night and as shiny as a star. She figured that if her father had to be buried, this one seemed to fit the situation well. She bit her lip, telling herself she would not cry. Crying would do no good now that he was gone. The box was rolled close to the 2 females, and half the lid was lifted to reveal the face they both knew so well. Then the men stepped aside and told us to say our goodbyes. Goodbye. Catherine hated goodbye. There was no good in them. There was only pain. Her mother went first, walking over to her husband and whispering things that resembled terms of endearment. The girl was slightly jealous, as she had never heard words like that from her mother like that. It was only yells of frustration and screams of anger. She took a breath, commanding herself not to cry. After her mother had finished, Catherine walked over to the long black box that held her father. Oh, how she hated black at that moment. She looked into the case, catching the last glimpses of her father that she would ever have. His already pale oval face was much longer and paler than it was before, due to all the treatments he had been given in the last 6 months. His blonde hair was pulled back in a style that Catherine knew he would never have picked for himself. He would have had his longer hair drape in his face, blocking his bright blue eyes, but she could see the face but not the eyes. Perhaps it was for the best, she wondered, because if she couldn't see the love of life and eyes that held the hues of the living, could they really be his eyes? She forced herself to say something, anything, to the body lying in front of her. Finally, something came out of her mouth. "Hi, Dad," she started, her voice constricting with grief. "I'm sorry I couldn't have been there for you in the hospital more, but you know how it is. Midterms are the worst." She gave a sigh. Midterms weren't the worst. Cancer was. It's what took her father from her. Well, Her midterms kind of did that as well, so maybe they were tied. Anyway, I got your texts. I love you too. She reached out to touch his face, hoping to feel the warm feel of human skin, but only being met with chilling reality. Tears started to gather in her eyes, no matter how much she didn't want them to. Goodbye, Daddy. I hope wherever you are is better than here. She slowly stepped back and allowed the men in black to seal the coffin, never to be opened again. The tears started to slowly trail down Catherine's face as she asked where she could find the bathroom. She was directed to a small room on the right. It was white, very white, with a singular set of toilets, sink, and mirror. She caught her breath and looked at her reflection. It was marred with black tear stains from the makeup her mother had insisted on. Noises that sounded like muffled sobs escaped her lips as she covered her mouth and dropped to the floor, placing her father's face into her memories. She would never see him again, never hear his voice. Nothing. She had her entire life in front of her. She was only 14, and had to live it without her father, without her best friend. Where was the justice in that? She reached up and grabbed a paper towel from the dispenser in an attempt to catch her tears, but they continued to fall beyond the towel into the equally dark dress. It wasn't fair. How could she live without him? Suddenly, in her moment of weakness, a small voice that had been silenced for several weeks started to speak in a hiss-like whisper. Remember me? It asked. I was the one that used to comfort you when those bullies turned on you, when your mother would abuse you. I was your friend Kate, and now I'm the only friend you have left. Come on, you know what to do. She did remember what to do. She had done it for months. Her fingers rifled through her purse and found a paperclip. With shaky hands, we had great practice. She straightened the wire into a sharp, straight line. Good, the voice whispered. Now do it. Remember how good it felt? The pain that distracted you? We both know you need a distraction today more than ever before. She lined up, ready to scrape the pointed edge across her wrist. Well, it wouldn't open the white scars that lingered there, but it would hurt enough to give her a sense of escape. When the tip was about to touch her pale skin, common sense reminded her of why she had stopped before. One of the last things your father did was take you to therapy, to get you better. What did it say about you if you're this close to throwing it away the second he left? You have to be strong, if nothing else, for his memory. Catherine closed her eyes and dropped the wire weapon onto the very white, pale floor. She couldn't do it, not after her father did everything he did to try and help her recover. All the fights with her mother over the importance of taking her to London each week, after pouring his savings into her sessions, all in an attempt to help her, to fix her. She couldn't throw that away, especially at his funeral. More sobs echoed through the small space as she crumpled. This wasn't that fair. After she had cried every tear she had left in her system, she shakily pulled herself up with the help of the cold hard counter. Her pale face was stained with thick black lines. Oh, how she despised black. She wet a paper towel and did her best to make herself presentable. Not that it mattered. Her father had died. Of course she would be in tears. When she walked back into the original room, the calling hours had already commenced. She lowered her head and walked into her indents on the carpet. The people in line looked at her with a look of sympathy, but her mother shot her a look of complete disdain. It was as if she didn't believe that her own daughter had a right to fall apart. However, Catherine was entirely shocked by her reaction. She was used to it. The calling hours continued as Catherine had predicted. Throngs of people she had never met. They were people that he had worked with, played golf with, spent time with when he wasn't at home. She truly was in a room filled with strangers. They were all telling her how great her father was, how sorry they were for her loss, how things would get better. Their words hit the young girl like a bag of bricks. She knew they just wanted to help, but the words only hurt. She wanted to go far away from there, curl up in a blanket, and just mourn in peace, without people telling her that it would be okay. It would never be okay. Never again. As the line of people started to thin, Catherine was approached by the first person she actually recognized. His name was Devin Glass, a sharp-featured young man who shared most of his classes with her. Catherine and he weren't friends per se, yet he was the closest thing she had had all day. He slowly approached the trembling girl while the man she assumed was his father talked with her mother. Devin gave her a look of sympathy, although she'd seen it on dozens of faces before. This time it was from someone who knew her. "Hello, Catherine," he greeted, his puberty-stricken voice attempting to whisper. I'm sorry." "Yeah, me too," she replied, her voice quivering with sadness. She looked down as her throat dried with grief. The boy's lips formed into a line before he asked her, "Do you need a hug?" She looked up, thought for a few seconds, before nodding. He stepped forward and wrapped the poor girl in his arms. He was a little taller than her, so her head fit in his collarbone. His grip around her was awkward, unsure, like he had never hugged a girl before. But the fact that he was even trying brought great comfort to her. She held in a few tears that had started in a form of a sniff. "It's okay, Catherine. You can cry if you need to." Without approval, Catherine let a few tears fall and seep into his shirt. She felt bad that she was letting go in front of someone that she didn't know that well. But when he eventually let her pull away, Devin gave her a tentative smile, indicating that it was okay. "Don't worry, Cat. I'm here for you." She sniffed and curled her pink lips, smiling. "Thank you, Devin." He gave her a nod and followed his father to a seat in the back. After the last person had left the line, Catherine and her mother sat down in 2 seats in the front. The service remained as a blur of melancholy emotions and people saying kind things to Catherine. Finally, near the end of the service, it was her turn to speak about her father. She didn't prepare anything. She didn't know what to say, but her shaking legs carried her to the podium anyway. She looked over the crowd. The addition of Devin and her father, there were only 15 people. 15 people that cared enough to say goodbye. It sickened her. However, she just cleared her throat and spoke into the microphone. "Hello, I'm Catherine, Daniel's father. I know I should be better prepared than this, but everything was just so unexpected." She took a breath and attempted to chuckle, which sounded just as telling as her true emotions as crying would. "It's kind of funny. One day you think that things are better, that everything is going to work out, and then something like this happens." She shook her head, a piece of her father's advice coming to mind. "However, I know that Dad wouldn't want us to be sad for too long. He'd want us to move on, to continue to live happy lives, even if we weren't able to share them with him. I honestly don't know how I'm going to do that, but for him, I'll try anything." Feeling as though she had said everything she could, Catherine moved back to her seat and took in what she had said. He would want her to be happy one day. Maybe not today, maybe not that year, but one day. And even if she didn't know how to find a way to be happy for herself, she vowed that she would try anything for him. And that is the end of my prologue. I'm sorry that it is such a bummer scene, but I feel like it introduces a lot of important things that come up in the book. Her relationship with her mother, her past relationship with Devin, her father's death, things like that do come up several times in the book. Anyway, I hope that that you enjoyed it and that it didn't suck totally. Yeah, I don't really know how to finish this. I need to come up with a way to end this. If you liked it, tell me in the comments down below. I will probably read more of my things. If you want to hear more of my book, this book, or anything else I'm working on, say that down below. I don't know. I don't know how to end this. I ended it on just such a tragic note. I don't know how to finish this thing without it just being a bummer. So, yeah, yay, it's the end of Nano, and to all of you that are pushing through to try to hit 50K by the end of, and by midnight, I believe in you and you can do it. For those of you who have already won, congratulations. I should have muted my computer for recording. And that's it, I think. Thanks for clicking on this, and I honestly don't even know how to end this at all. Like, at all. So yeah, yeah. I'll see you around later. Bye. Hey guys, popping in again. As I was going through and editing the video, I realized I never explained why I am wearing a Batman onesie in a video, and that seems like something that should have been explained, and I did not. Okay, so the very short answer of why I am wearing this is because this is what I was wearing when I started Nano. I stayed up till midnight, and I wrote, like, on midnight I had a sprint, and it was, this was what I was wearing. So, I decided to just wear this today at the end of Nano as sort of like a symbolic, fun thing. I don't normally just walk around in a Batman onesie. But, you know, I felt like today was a good day to do that as sort of a celebratory symbol of the beginning of and end of Nano. So, that's the explanation for this. And another point is I have a live stream tonight. Tonight my time, I don't know what time it will be for you, and I'm not quite sure what time it is for us quite yet. We're still kind of working it out, but it's going to be on Clara Reed's Books channel, and I'll link it in the description. We've been doing a couple live streams throughout Nano, and when I figure out a time of when it is, I'll put that in the description, or annotated somewhere. But yeah, so that's the explanation of the onesie, and news about the live stream that we will be having a live stream tonight, tonight-ish, which is exciting. So just basically a yay, the end of Nano thing. So that's all I have, and hopefully this will make a better ending than my other ending that didn't really exist. So yeah, I'll see you guys later or in another video, and